Okay, hey, I am live on. Yes, I am. Great. So, hello. I am going to look on my phone to see if anybody makes any comments, but I am really happy to be live on Facebook because I haven't been live on Facebook for a really long time. Probably like you guys, my life has been really crazy right now. And I was just talking to some folks last night about how I kind of feel like shy about getting out in public. I literally like don't interact with anybody in person anymore. So I'm getting like really in touch with my introverted side these days. And I'm not teaching this year. And so I don't even interact with any students either. And like all I'm doing is pretty much just madly like every day waking up and working on the free curriculum and working on the ELIT texts. And I just madly create things every day as if my brain's on fire, or more like the world's on fire right now. Um, and I love doing that stuff, but it kind of starts to feel like a school project or something like that. Like it starts to feel like I'm just making this stuff for my own personal enjoyment, because I don't feel a connection really with like where it's going, and who's using it. So I just decided last night that I should start doing more live interaction with people the only way that I really can these days. Because right now in a normal year, I would be gearing up to go to ACTFL, but we're not going to ACTFL this year. ACTFL is virtual, but I don't even know if I'm gonna attend it because, like I said, I've just been like madly working on this curriculum and these texts so much every day for like 10 hours probably. And it's fun. I love it. And it's great because we're building up all of these resources that are not necessarily just going to be useful during the pandemic times. They're going to be useful for years to come. So I'm just kind of like I feel like sometimes like every day I just get up and like put another brick in the wall, like another text, another like set of lesson resources, another reading workshop text. It's just like I keep just making this wall, which I hope will be useful for ever. And what a great accomplishment it will be at the end of the year if it's actually Alana who's doing most of the heavy lifting with the curriculum materials. But if at the end of the year, Alana and I and the team, a really great team of people that are helping us write this stuff, and mostly like translating the stuff, like I'll create the like skeleton of it and like the kind of like core resources, and then Alana and the translating team will translate it and flesh it out in some situations, or like sometimes I'll like write it for French, and so then they have to like culturally change it. I used to work at a translation company right after college, in like in 2000 and 2001 and 2002, and we had 3 departments: interpretation, translation, and localization. So localization actually is a pretty interesting part of the work that we were doing. I wasn't in that department. I was in translation. But localization is basically taking like let's say you're Nike, which was one of our clients. So if you're Nike and you want to do an ad and it needs to be translated into German and like it's going to be shown in Austria, you don't want to just take the American like cultural background that was in the like assumptions that everybody was using to make the original ad for the US market. So localization is like a person who's familiar with the culture, is probably a person that was like bicultural, right? So they could look at the American product and think like, what culturally are they trying to get across, and then what would resonate with the Austrian cultural milieu. And so that's kind of what like a lot of times is happening with the translation and curriculum team that Alana's heading up, which is like I'll write it in French and then they'll have to go and like maybe I wrote it about, I don't know, Versailles or whatever, and so then it's like they take all that and they find the equivalent culturally for another culture so that we can not be teaching just about French stuff. So it's kind of like localization, I suppose. Like that's what we would have called it at Corporate Translation Services, my alma mater. But anyway, I'm really happy to sort of be connecting with people, I suppose. I'm just gonna go and check my phone and see if anybody is making any comments on the Facebook. So we will see about that. But let's oh, Catherine, I hope you have found the Facebook Live. So I'm gonna go and see if I can find on the Facebook group a post to talk about. I feel like I've been so I'm gonna mute the site though. I feel like I've been so wrapped up in the making of all the resources and stuff that I've kind of been neglecting my favorite place on the entire internet, which is this Facebook group. So I really want to just kind of see what people are saying. Let's just find, I'm just gonna like scroll and kind of find like a random thing. Okay, let's see, Kayla K. Oh, wait, hang on, let me go back. Oh man, now I lost Kayla. Let's see what Kayla said. She looks like she had a good question. She says, does anybody have any shell or plug and go, I've never heard that term, plug and go stories they're willing to share? I did a one-word image and their asynchronous assignment is to draw their character. I was explaining the directions. A student asked, how do we create a character? I explained to her how our character came out of the one-word image process, and if we wanted, we could make her do things like go places and eat at restaurants. Oh, how cute. So I'd like to extend the one-word image with a story, but creative writing has never been my forte. And I feel without a guide of some sort, I won't create a story to provide enough repetition, and my story just won't be that good or interesting to students. Anyone have any go-to story asking scripts that they're willing to share? I've been focusing on the Super 7 right now. But other than that, I'm a Department of 1, so no specific curriculum. Have a lot of flexibility on vocab and whatnot. Well, Kayla, that's a really good question. And actually, this is like one of my favorite questions. So the thing about telling a story is that, okay, I think Kurt Vonnegut said, or maybe it wasn't Kurt Vonnegut who said this, but he has like visually made these like, his thesis was that there's like only 7 plots in the entire history of telling stories. And so that like every story kind of falls into this like arc of the story in 7 different ways. And I don't remember like all the exact 7 different ways, because most of my life I taught language arts and social studies and French to 7th graders. So we were just focusing on like the basics of story structure. So what I would recommend, Kayla, is that you find a story structure that works for you, and then like think about Kurt Vonnegut. He's, you know, a pro at writing. Actually, he might not be alive anymore, but anyway, his work will live on forever. So yeah, so anyway, if there's only 7 story structures that like every author who's ever written anything has ever used, then I wouldn't think it's so hard for us to like have to knock ourselves out trying to figure out how to tell a story. So what I always did when we did creative writing, or even personal narrative, but more really like imaginative writing with my 7th graders, is we would use a story mountain. And a story mountain is basically like the basic plot of a story. It's basically like, it has 5 parts. So it's a mountain, it's like that. And so this part is like exposition. And then it's rising action, climax, falling action, and then like denouement, or like tying everything back up together. Even though I think denouement actually means untying. But anyways, I've actually made, and I'll go try to find this and put it on your post. I've made a ton of like interactive story mountains that you can use. And they even have like little icons to help kind of prompt you and the students to like co-create the different parts of this story mountain. And I personally like have often just like started with a character. Like a one-word image is especially good because everybody tends to be, not every single buddy, but most of your class, if you pick the right character, like you got to pick a character everybody is invested in, right? If you start with a character that everyone likes that they've made. And this is why, like, when I learned about this from Ben Slavic 2 or 3, 4 years ago, it just kind of blew my mind and really got me to like rethink. Oh, by the way, Kristen, if you're watching, Kristen Wolf made this hat for me, so I love it. This is like my "It's Not Raining" hat, because it's not like impermeable. You can kind of like, the rain can get through, but it's not raining today, so I'm wearing your hat, Kristen. It's like my special, it's a little chilly but not raining in Portland hat. So anyway, the one word images are really great to tell a story with, because when I realized that they build so much engagement, then I was able to start like letting go of a lot of like the stress around making a story, because no matter what, even if the story was like super duper simple, I knew it was still going to be engaging to the majority of my students. You're not gonna, I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said, you're not gonna please everybody all the time, but you know, if I can please 82% of the people 91% of the time, you know, that's a pretty good batting average for a teacher. So and then I always used to remind myself, like, okay, down the hall they're like solving algebraic formulas, you know, like I think if that's really my competition, then I can be pretty sure that like what I'm doing here isn't like so bad compared to the other subjects out there, because nobody else is trying to think of like, how can I tell a really great story? Generally in most, you know, math classes or whatever, it's just math. So anyways, when you start with that one word image and then you've got this like story mountain, you can just tell the kids like, we're gonna fill out this story mountain together. So like you don't have to have like a story script. However, since like there's this kind of archetypal way that humans tell stories, you can tell a very satisfying story that actually kind of has a problem and goes somewhere and gets resolved with a really simple structure, using that story mountain plus a one word image, or a story mountain and like a kid's story. So oftentimes, like when I'll use the story mountain, I'll like ask them as like an exit ticket the day before to just like jot down like in English, what, like, hey everybody, I want to tell a story tomorrow and I'm going to pick one of your stories. So like I want a story about a time that you won something, or a time that either you won something or you lost something, or a trip that you took that was really great, or a trip that you took that was really bad, you know, whatever I think is going to be engaging to them. Or maybe we're studying, I mean, like maybe we have a theme that we're studying right now. So we're studying transportation. So it's like a story about you going somewhere on a train or in a plane or in a car. So anyways, once I would get like their little jottings down, that's kind of all I needed. And I didn't have to like pre-plan the story or like have a script, because as we would go through that story mountain with the little tips that I think I can hopefully have time to share with you guys, because I really don't want to go over like 25 minutes because I'm kind of notorious for talking too long. But anyways, once I would have that little kernel and the story mountain, like it just kind of tells itself. And there are ways to like build in repetition of whatever language gets used in the story, like as you're telling the story, and you don't have to like pre-plan for it either, which I don't like pre-planning stuff. It takes too much time. I don't have that time to do that. So when I would do a story mountain, like let's imagine we have a one word image and it's like, I don't know, a talking avocado. It seems like talking avocados are very universal in the world of one word images. I've seen millions of talking avocados in my day. So let's say we have a talking avocado named Stan, and we determined while we were making him that he's really, really smart and he's like super hardworking, but he's really lonely because he is going to school with a bunch of bananas and he doesn't have any avocado friends and he wants an avocado friend. And he's normal size. So he's like this big. So we have this character, and that would be kind of all we have. Usually when I would do a one word image at the end of the process, I didn't do this at first, but I learned that this really helps me if I want to use it in a story. I would ask the kids in English, just at the end of the process, right? Like the whole process would be conducted in the language. And then at the end, I would just be like, hey, you guys, like, why is Stan so interested in getting an avocado friend? Whatever it was that his emotion was, right? So if they were lonely, or if they were happy, or if they were angry or whatever, I'd be like, why is this avocado so angry, y'all? And I would say it just like that, like kind of pretending. I mean, most of the time I was actually kind of invested in the little avocado myself because they get kind of like lovable. But I would just like ask them like as if I just couldn't wait to find out. And I just had to use English to find this out. Like, why is Stan so interested in finding another avocado? And then I would use this trick from improv, like where it's like, yes, and that's the trick. So somebody's going to go, well, he's wants to find another avocado because he's lonely. Usually the first thing somebody says is kind of like, duh. But I wouldn't be like that. I'd be like, yes. And why is he so lonely? And then some other kid, there's probably some like things I was kind of a screaming out in class type of teacher. So like people weren't exactly raising their hands. And I liked it that way, actually. It's not just me being lazy with my classroom management, because that way like nobody feels rejected, because they're like, oh, he's wants to find more avocados because he wants a date. And I'm like, nah. I just don't want that kind of moment. So I'm like more like, everybody just like, give me some ideas like all at once, like call it out. I'm like, you guys, like, yes, he wants to find a friend. He's lonely. And what else? And then they'd be like, I hear all these ideas, right? So I'm kind of listening for like the one I like. It's like, because he wants to go to the avocado prom. I'm like, yeah, he wants to find an avocado friend because there's an avocado prom he wants to go to. And what else? So I would generally do that 3 times, because usually like that first suggestion is usually like kind of priming the pump. Like it's usually the obvious choice and it's not like good enough, like on its own. So I would just like add like 3 kids kind of like things that they're calling out together, so that we've got kind of like this more fleshed out like situation for the avocado. So let's imagine that they said Stan really wants to find an avocado because he wants to go to the avocado prom, and he wants to go to the avocado prom so bad because he just took a ballroom dancing class at avocado finishing school and he wants to show off his moves. So I'd be like, cool, thanks you guys. Well, let's close with a little quiz, and then probably go back into French and like quiz them up on Stan that we just created, and then send them on their happy way. So then the next day, if they come back, not if, well, maybe if you're teaching them on Zoom, it is if they come back, but like when they come back, I would tell them we're going to craft this story. So let me go find a story mountain in my big, huge mess of a Google Drive. It's a big, huge mess, but we'll try to find it anyway. Let's see, GD, Google Drive, Story Mountain. See, I've already searched this up before. Let's see. I wonder if this one is fillable. Some of them are. So anyway, I guess it doesn't really matter if it's fillable. You can't like, I guess I could try to open it with, whatever. Anyways, I shared my screen in a way that I could I just made that choice, and I wish I hadn't now because I can't get out of this window of my Chrome browser. So I can't download it to see, because you can't type into a fillable PDF within a Google Drive. But if it were fillable, which there are some, and I'll make sure that I can find the fillable one before. Well, actually, why don't I just do this? I'm just going to stop the share and like reshare it so that I can show you my entire everything. Okay, welcome to my world, y'all. All right, let's see if I download this, if I can type into it. I think you can, because I see the clickable thing at the top. Yeah, so you can like type into these things. So it is those little parts to the Story Mountain. So some of them have more icons, but this is kind of like the basic version. So like this is where you put the character. So you can talk to them in French, right? You could be like, okay, il s'appelait comment? Oh yeah, oui, il s'appelait Stan, S-T-A-N. C'était un avocat ou une banane? He's obviously not a banana, right? Because he's going to banana school and that's why he's lonely. L'avocat au C-A-T. Okay, hey class, quel âge avait Stan? So maybe we didn't like determine his age, right? So this is like, we're kind of co-creating the story, right? So anyway, we would establish like the details about Stan, either what we know from yesterday when we made him, or maybe a couple weeks back when we made him. And we could put all that there. And then these are like telling where this is like to prompt you to tell where he's at. So like the setting, because usually the exposition part is like kind of setting up the setting and the characters. And then it'd be like, okay, so, you know, what's he want? Kind of, where's he go? And then this has this little sad face because it's like he's at the top of the mountain. It's like the climax. I personally don't say the word climax very much in class. It can lead you down to some dark places, but I would just say the problem. So like, this is where Stan's gonna have a problem, right? So we're just all kind of like co-creating it. And then, you know, usually here, my advice, this is really good advice, is to have them meet a new person or go to a new place or both. Like a new person who takes them to a new place, or they go to a new place and they meet a new person. And then it's like very easy to get his problem solved because this new person, you know, is going to have some answers for them, or you're going to teach him something like maybe he meets another avocado, or maybe he meets a banana who's green. And so he's like, well, you know, it's a green banana, but I'm green too. So like, I'm going to sneak this banana into the avocado prom and we're going to see if we can pass this green banana off as a really long, skinny avocado. And then at the end, it's like, you know, the ending. Like he goes to the dance and they dance all night and his ballroom dancing moves are the best. And then this little scroll down here is like kind of a bonus, I guess, for like you could put like the moral of the story or like the lesson of the story. And honestly, that is in there to kind of help the teacher remind yourself to like help them incorporate those like higher order thinking skills, like synthesis, like bringing the whole story forward and like synthesizing it into like what, and it's also like kind of application too, right? Like how can we apply this to other people's lives? So as you're making the story, like your other question was about like repetition. As you're making the story, my advice is just to keep your language super simple. And just kind of keep coming like back to the same language, like in all these little boxes. And the great thing about a story mountain is that you're kind of also doing like your daily writing as you're making the story, because like they're hearing you talk about it and you're also like writing down what they say. So it's a really powerful learning tool for the kids, like because it's putting the oral language right into the written form. But it's not like, it doesn't feel like stale or canned to the kids because it's like being co-created right there in front of their little faces. In an in-person class, I don't know how this will work on Zoom, but for an in-person class, I would gain a lot of repetitions by using student actors. So again, this is a Ben Slavic thing. He, like 4 years ago, working with Ben Slavic, it like changed my entire life. He was full of such good ideas on how to manage things. He'd been doing TPRS for a long, long time. So he told me to have, and this is like for in-person, if you can figure out how to do this on Zoom, that would be really great. But I don't know. He would have like, and I would have too, because I used to do everything the man said. He would put a stool here and a stool there, and he would like stand in between the two stools, and he would put one actor here and one actor there. But in like, this kind of was huge for me because before I learned this little trick, my actors, okay, I took a TPRS training at some point and somebody said, your actors should be actors, not distractors. And I was like, yeah, that's a good advice. But myself, I'm a very enthusiastic person. So I remember when I was a TA, when I was getting my master's, the section head was like, oh, he was like rolling his eyes too. He was like, oh, Tina, a enthusiast, because I'm pretty like intense sometimes. So anyway, like I used to get like super carried away, and like my actors would be totally like, you know, vibing with the energy, and like it would get kind of insane and out of control. But having them on the stools and like following Ben's advice really calmed things down. Because I moved into like, for the last 3 or 4 years that I was teaching languages, I moved into like having them be more like little, I would tell them like, you're like my little visual aid. You're like my little puppet. Like you're only here to repeat what I say and ham it up to amuse your class, to get them to pay attention to French. So I would basically just have them like repeat after me. And so that built in like so many like natural repetitions that didn't feel forced or like I was having to work really hard for them, because I would be like, like, let's say, you know, we just figured out that Stan is about to call the avocado. No, he's gonna call the banana. So that usually I wouldn't bring the actors up at the beginning. I would like do the exposition part first, and then when it kind of starts getting a little action in the story, like as you're kind of going up the mountain, or maybe even like at the top of it when the problem starts, that's when I would call the actors up. I'd be like, oh, you guys, I need an avocado, I need a Stan. Okay, Michaela, come sit here. All right. Oh, and the banana. Okay, so Bobby, you come sit here. All right, so I got the kids, and then I'd be like, okay, Stan, and I would talk in French, right? I'd be like, oh, Stan, est content? No, Stan n'est pas content. And then I'd like look at him. And if I had a good actor that I could trust, I would know they would be trained after a couple of stories that when I'm like looking at them like this, like I want them to like portray the thing I just said. So be like, oui, class, Stan n'est pas content. No. So I'd like look at Stan, and then Stan's like, I'd be like, oh, class, Stan n'est pas content. Il est juste pas content ou il est triste. And they'd be like, triste. I'd be like, oui, Stan est triste. And then I'd like look at Stan. And like maybe originally they're like this. And so then they'd be like, I'd be like, and then if like I wanted to kind of park on this and like milk it a little bit, like, no. Stan est triste. And I'd like look at him again. And so they're like, and then they'd be like, be like, oh no. Hey class, Stan est un peu triste ou Stan est super extrêmement triste? And they'd be like, oh, they always want to make it, you know, see the actor ham it up. So it's like, il est triste, extrêmement triste. And I'm like, oui, il est extrêmement triste. And then Stan's like, wah! So once I had the actor like, this is why I think you have to rely on like 1 or 2 or 3 good actors, because once you get them eaten out of the palm of your hand like this, like they're super valuable, because not only are they like helping the class pay attention, but they're also like helping you provide all these repetitions. Because eventually what I would have after we like establish that he's really sad, and then you could be like, is he sad or is he happy? Or this banana over here, is this banana sad? Is it happy? Is it really sad? Like Stan's really sad. I'd be like, Stan's really sad. No, Stan is super triste. So like they're getting a lot of triste here and like content, or whatever words that you were, you know, using in the story. And then the real like good repetitions start to happen when you can have them like either express themselves or like talk to each other. So I would like make the actor like repeat after me. I'd be like, we Stan, like once they satisfied me that they're like extremely sad over here and they're like really hamming it up and looking really sad, I would be like, oui, Stan pense, oh, comme je suis triste. And then I like look at them and they'd be like, comme je suis, well, they'd be like talking like, you know, students, they'd be like, comme je suis triste. I'd be like, no, Stan est extrêmement triste. Il dit, je suis triste. And like, I would actually at this point kind of like lower my like emoting, because I can't, like, I'm really energetic, but I can't keep it up for like 5 periods a day, like 180 days of the year. So like, and also I want my actor to like start shining, you know, and like carrying a class. So I would kind of like be kind of almost like physically backing up and also like emotionally just kind of taking it down. But like I've got them all warmed up. And so I'm like, no, Stan est extrêmement triste. And so then the kid's like, oh, je suis triste. I'm like, no, il est super triste. Extrêmement triste. And then they're like, je suis très triste. And so like once I get them all like being super sad, so like not only have I like established that they're super sad like without them talking and like making them say or making them like portray again and again like that they're sadder and sadder, now I'm like having them like express this, like they're just thinking. And sometimes the actor would be like, I'd be like, Stan pense, oh, comme je suis triste, and they'd be like this. And I'm like, no, in this class, it's a French class, so like you have to think out loud. So then I'm like, Stan pense out loud, je suis triste. And so then they're like thinking out loud, and then like I can have them talk to each other. Like I can have this banana show up and be like, oh, tu es triste? And then the Stan's like, oui, je suis triste. I'd be like, no, Stan, dis, like, très, très, tristement, oh, je suis triste. And so like I can have, even like as they're talking, I can like kind of use this excuse of like, you're not emotional enough. You're not emoting enough in this little acting like workshop. You need to emote more. And so like having them like keeping on repeating it with more and more emotion, like just builds in a lot of repetition too. Then another, oh, I'm already overdue, but I'm gonna tell you one last thing. Another really great way to get repetitions, well, there's a bunch of really great ways to get repetitions. I personally used to try really hard to get all my repetitions in the oral making of the story. And that always made my stories like go really long, and sometimes we wouldn't even finish them. So I kind of moved like, a bunch of the repetitions like to after the story. And that made my life really easy because then it's like this multimedia like experience. Like we told the story on the story mountain, then we like brought up the actors, or maybe as we're telling the story, we brought up the actors, like it doesn't really matter. If you have the actors up, it's gonna take longer. But if you're on Zoom or whatever, and you don't have actors, no big deal. You can just tell the story. And you can still gain repetitions by doing like things after the story. So kind of processing it in like different ways. So in person, I would very often, after we told the story with the actors, I would be like, okay, we're gonna take a video. So I would have this kid whose job it was to take these class videos. And like when I was normally videotaping my class, like for going on Facebook all the time, that was the fun days. I really had a good time doing that. The kids were never in the video, but like when we would do the little class videos, we would use like a separate device to record the video so that they could get the kids, right? Because it was just for like our internal use, so the kids could be in the videos. And they could like zoom in on Stan and like zoom out, and like we'd bring up like extras and stuff. And so I would like get off the camera and I would be like narrating and like prompting the actors, and they would basically be reenacting the exact same thing that we had done like as we were creating the story, like, but I wasn't like making them, I wasn't like torturing them that way of like, no, he's really sad, no, he's really, really sad, no, he's super duper sad. I want to do that because I want it to look polished, right? So like whatever they did, I would accept it at that point. But I'd kind of like warmed them up and like taught them their lines or whatever. So but I would just be off the camera, like narrating it back. And the kids would be like acting it out. And I would never have extras during the creation of the story, but like during this part, I would like get maybe 4 or 5 kids to like portray the other avocados. And like maybe everybody who's wearing green this day, you know, gets to be the avocados and whatever. Or no, they were bananas, so yellow. And like we never had props like in the telling of the story once I like discovered this little system. But during the reenactment or like the little video retelling, I would bust out a couple of props, and not a bunch because it takes too much time to like make all these props. So that's another way to just like get a really good repetition, because it's like they're hearing the entire thing over again, like as a fluid story that they're familiar with because you just made it. And then like another way to get more repetitions is to take the story mountain, or even if you didn't do a story mountain, and like write it out like as an actual story. And so it's kind of like, well, I mean, write and discuss, basically it's write and discuss with a story mountain to like use as your like little cheat sheet or whatever. So like as you're doing that, you can build in a much more repetitions. And I have also found that something about sitting down and doing the writing, it like frees up a lot of brain space for me, because it's already this known story. It's not like I have to still be creative. So I can really like intentionally, like if there's certain things I want to bring to them, like certain cohesive devices, like first, second, third, or then and after that, or whatever little transition words or vocab that I want to like forward that day to them. I have like the brain space because I'm just sitting down and doing some writing with them to like consciously incorporate that. Or maybe I would even sometimes have a little post-it note over here, like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be putting those words in there, or like an anchor chart or something like that to like prompt me and the kids like that this is the words we want to incorporate into our retell of the story. And so then you've got the story. So you can do all kinds of things with the story. Like you could even like take it into another day and like do reading workshops with the story, or like I saw a video of Susie Gross a long time ago. This was on a video called TPRS in the 90s. I bought this like DVD of this Susie Gross video of TPRS in the 90s. My husband made fun of me at the time. He was like, this is the nerdiest video like that anyone has ever purchased in the history of humanity. But it was a great video, and I saw her doing this thing that was really powerful. And I didn't know it had a name or anything, so I just called it Everybody Acts, because everybody's acting. So she had everybody like partnered up around the room. So like if the actors had been Stan and the banana, because I truly would have like not let my class call that banana anything but banana, because you got Stan and the banana. So like everybody in the room would have a partner, and one would be Stan and one would be the banana. So like Stan, levez la main, les Stan. Okay, la banane, levez la main, les bananes. Okay, so like I know who's Stan, I know who's the banane, and so then like I would, again, it would be almost the same thing that I did with the original like video retell. I'm kind of off camera and just giving them their lines, but like everybody's acting at the same time. So like all the shy kids and everything who would never want to be up in front of the room are still like getting this opportunity to kind of like parrot the language and kind of just practice. I know like output doesn't make input happen or whatever, but like they're still getting all this input from me, and they're getting that satisfaction of like, I spoke French today, but it's like super scaffolded and really safe, right? Because it's just to their partner. That's one really good way to do it. I would do choral translation with them. I would do volleyball reading with them. But like once you have that written story, like you can just take the repetitions like to the moon and back, because there's like all these reading options that you can do once you've got this text. And oftentimes, even if we worked with the text one day, I would bring it back like the next day or at the end of the week, or even at the sometimes end of the month. We would like go back and read all the things. Like we would just take a day to like read all the things that we thought were cool, that we'd built up in our little class folder of all the write and discuss that we'd done. Like I used to do them like 3, 4, 5 times a week. And so we'd have a lot by the end of like the term or the end of the week even, or the month. And so like we would just read them back over, or like do some reading options with some of those, or like play games with them or whatever. So I would really recommend, it sounds like you're in a really good situation, because like you said, you have all this freedom, you're a department of one, and there's no like required vocab. So, but of course, like even if you don't have required vocab, and even if you're totally like untargeted free form in like the language that you're using, and you're not like, I am trying to teach a list of school supplies, because nobody's making you do that or whatever. Nobody's like, that's not the expectation. Even if you don't have to like target certain words as like the learning objective, like it does benefit a kid or anyone to hear repetitions of language that they're like receptively able to get. But of course, like it takes so much longer to be able to produce it, right? So in order for it to finally like reach the productive stage, they have to hear it a bunch. So using all these like tricks to repeat whatever language it is that you need to repeat, but without like laboriously trying to like hammer the language like as you're telling the story, I have found is a lot less work on me, and it keeps the kids happier. And you know, if kids ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. That thing about if mom ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, that is not true. It's like if the kids ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. But mom's not gonna be happy unless the kids are learning. So like for mom to be happy, the kids have to be learning, but for the kids to be happy, the learning has to be fun. So it's not like it's just fun and games time, but I do really, really feel super committed to like the fact that a lot of what happens in school is not fun for anybody, well, especially right now. But a lot of what we have to do in school isn't fun for the teacher. It's not fun for the kids. And so anytime that we can like make the learning go down a little happier for the kids, I think is doing a service to humanity. Because if we raise people to think that like learning is actually a chore and it's no fun at all, and it's only something that you do under like duress and somebody's making you or punishing you if you don't, then that's really not a world of the future adults that I want taking care of me when I'm like in the nursing home, when I'm like 82 years old. Let's hope I get there. I want people who, you know, find life to be a zesty enterprise. Well, anyways, I'm going to go and cruise through the comments. I know I went over, but it was a little psychological trick I played on myself, because, you know, I kind of thought if I said 3:25, I'd probably end at 3:30. But I always know that I go over, so I went 15 minutes over, but it was still only 40 minutes. So I guess that's a win for me today. So thanks for coming on. And that was a lot of information, but I'm going to go and post this story mountain. And I think there's one other thing. Hopefully I'll remember it. If I don't remember it and you're watching this and you're like, hey, Tina said she wanted me to get this thing and she didn't put it in here, then you should just write a comment and make sure you say my name in the comment, and then I will get a tag and I'll be able to come and rectify the situation, because I seriously don't remember what I told you guys I was gonna share, except for the story mountain, which I'm gonna go post right now. All right, well, thanks for coming on, and I think I'm gonna do this again tomorrow because it was so much fun, and I've really been missing like being involved more with the group. All right, thank you, and bye.